Time Hunter, The Cabinet of Light. Written by Daniel O'Mahony. Read by Terry Molloy. It was a typical East End fog. It wasn't white. Like all true Londoners, and despite what he saw at the flicks, Cranfield knew the fog was green. It was a damp, tubercular, reassuring shade. For years the night sky had glowed livid pink, shot through with dust and flame, though that was fading now. With time the tiny clumps of black or red flowers that bloomed on the rubble would die out. Cranfield was a young man. He hoped to be pounding this beat 20, 30 years on. His father had walked these streets when the first tentative bombs fell. His great-uncle had hunted the Ripper and the Limehouse Phantom nearby. He was walking in their footsteps, and in the labyrinth of fogs he could almost believe their paths would cross. 3 generations of policemen at the same crossroads. There came the peal of a bell from Shoreditch. Hairs prickled on the back of his neck, a memory of sirens and all-clear whistles, and the chime calling all hands to help pull bodies from the river. His beat took him past Spitalfields Market, which was shut up for the night, though the gate still thronged with people. The church opposite attracted them like doodlebugs. It was bone white, yellowed with neglect, then scorched black by a Luftwaffe handprint that might not fade for generations. To one side there was a scrub of grass where vagrants slept under newsprint blankets, though Cranfield couldn't imagine the dreams the church would give them. By day, when the streets filled with human heat, old women would sit on the steps beneath the angular spire and suck green oranges and spit the pips onto the street to mock austerity. Cranfield felt great sympathy for them, the living public. By night the stones absorbed all the heat and the people stayed huddled round the pub doorways till closing time, then at the market gate. Ragged around the gate were the dark facades of houses, pitted with gaps where other homes had stood, until one night they had been transformed into cairns of brick rubble and human pulp. Outside the market a woman was singing, a broken voice. Eerily, Cranfield couldn't see where it was coming from. There were mainly women here in their clusters. Vagrants stood shivering by a fire on the scrub. A dirt-faced boy ran in the street, grinning, slipped past Cranfield, and the policeman instinctively felt like lashing out, but checked himself. There was a woman squatting on the steps, older than she looked, wrapped in a dark shawl but bareheaded. She sold flowers by day, and had a flower's name, but he couldn't place it right now. There was an old soldier beside her, tall and heavy in his black cap and coat. He turned to look at Cranfield with a long, dead slab face that probably hadn't twitched since 1918. Cranfield tipped the rim of his hat and nodded automatically. But the eye that watched him was white and sightless. He moved through them, watching them bristle as he passed. Overhead was a shiny bomber's moon. They could all feel it despite the fog. There was a patch of darkness on the far side of the church. The girl came stumbling out of that. A splash of violent pink in the midst of green. Cranfield wasn't the first to see her. It was the commotion that made him turn, but he was the closest, and when she lost her footing, he was there to catch her. A few days later he would barely remember what she looked like. There was just the memory of her as she shambled towards him, taking each step as though it were her first, wearing nothing but a baggy, pink pair of pyjamas, not silk, not cotton, not even nylon, just pink and shiny in the moonlight. She was barefoot, her feet were blue. The pink pyjamas hung crumpled on her wiry frame. She was small enough for Cranfield to mistake her for a child, though, once he got close, he realized she was probably in her 20s. She was a skinny, pale thing. She shivered in the autumn fog, but she looked hurt rather than cold. Her eyes told him that they had a grey, traumatized sheen. Witness eyes. He could tell just by looking that her grasp on the everyday had been ripped away, and savagely.